There we go. I'm going to go ahead and record this session, and then if I do that, I can then make it available as a link to a YouTube video. I can send that to Dr. Smith, and then Dr. Smith can put that in your campus course or send that to you directly, just in case there's anything you'd want to go back and rewatch from our session or anything that maybe didn't make sense the first time. So I'll be sure and do that. I think that I've had a chance to at least do some presentations for you all before, and some of you may have emailed me in the past for any questions having to do with starting research and so forth. And if you have, that's fabulous. I'm so happy you've had a chance to do that. If you've not, or if you ever have any questions about what's remaining of your SLIM classes, your capstone, anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'll make sure that you have my contact information before we finish today. I am really happy to email you all with any research questions. Also, though, I'm more than happy to do this type of Zoom appointment with you. I find that sometimes we can answer questions much more quickly if we're just sort of doing a Zoom session back and forth. You can share your screen, I can show you my screen, and in that way sometimes we can get questions answered within just about 5 minutes. Well, Dr. Smith and I have had a chance to do this several times before in other collection development courses, and something that I always like to cover are aspects in particular of collection development as it applies to an academic library, and also the advent of electronic sources, ebooks, databases, e-journals, and how that has very much affected what we wind up selecting, certainly for you all as SLIM students. When you think about it, even here in Emporia, I'm just here in my house in Emporia, but even here, our students, actually even our distance education students, even those that are taking classes here on the Emporia campus, we don't really have a lot of students that live physically in Emporia. And even those that do, they're very busy with jobs, with families, with other aspects of their lives. So what's happened with us, particularly in this last year, is that I have really been working very closely with the SLIM faculty to say, okay, what types of resources are going to be most effective for you and for your students, and in what format? So as a result, as you probably know by this point, we are starting to move much more toward ebooks and looking at the access. So some of the things I'm going to be covering today are items such as contracts with different vendors, questions that we do have to ask different vendors if we're going to be doing more collection development in terms of ebooks, e-journals, and so forth. We get very, very involved with that. Certainly access in other ways. And as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, I think what I'm going to do is share my screen with you. And we are going to start probably with the one thing that's very much on your mind, which is indeed our new access to the library's webpage. And as Dr. Smith and I were kind of laughing about earlier, it's always not good to make changes in the middle of a semester. This is something that was actually beyond our control. This was a decision that was made above us as far as ESU and information technology was concerned. And because of that, we have had to do a lot of negotiations, to say the least. And when I say negotiations, I'm going to stop right here for just a second. So the fastest way now to get to the new library's webpage, which is now called Library Connect, where you can get to the catalog, the discovery search, journals, databases, is to go to www.emporia.edu/library. Some of you may already be aware of this. If not, I really want to make sure that you know this right now. So we're going to go to this directly. So basically what has happened is that some decisions were made to actually change the portal to every single web page for Emporia State University. Now, that also affected SLIM. We used to be able to go to the SLIM homepage directly by going to slim.emporia.edu. That doesn't work now either. You have to go to www.emporia.u/slim to get to the SLIM's homepage. what's happened is that I'm going to go ahead and open another
One
tab
second.
here. Yes, absolutely.
/slim is gone.
Let's try that again. Emporia.edu.
/slim.
Did they do away with that? Because that was just working last week.
Well, I thought this week when I tried it, it wasn't working. Oh, it
Oh,
actually
there you go. Yeah.
I think
There we
maybe
go.
that's a change.
It could be a change, right? What is gone is slim. Yeah. What is gone is slim.emporia.edu. And you notice that that address actually changed at the top. But if you just, but if you go to www.emporia.edu/slim, that is going to be your new way of getting to the SLIM's homepage. So you see how everything is just absolutely changed. It's just, oh my gosh. I was going to show you something here just really quick. If we just go to www.emporia.edu, so this has actually been the change that has happened as far as the main eSU website is concerned, and I think this is what has caused a lot of confusion and some consternation. So what has happened is that Emporia is now focused on these pages, including now the main Emporia website, being more of an external marketing site rather than internal. And because of that, if you were to scroll down here, and I wanted to show you this too. I've been teaching a lot of students how to do this. If you were to click at the bottom of the main eSU webpage on William Allen White Library, you might assume that would take you to Library Connect, which would be how to search the databases. It does not. This actually takes you to an external marketing site for the libraries and archives. And what that means is that if you were here, you would actually want to click where it says, how can we help you? Below you will find a direct link to Library Connect. And if you clicked here, that will take you back to Library Connect. Now that was actually 2 clicks I had to do. So that's why I've been really making sure that I'm teaching everyone to go to www.emporia.edu/library. Does that kind of make sense so far?
/library, not SLIM.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what you need to do.
For the library.
For the library.
Carmen, to get into the library, it needs to be /library.
Okay.
Okay. So, and you're going to see too that this screen looks far different from the old library's website. Again, this is something that we really had to work with pretty extensively with IT. Because what we had to do is say, well, we still need to make sure that our students know how to get to databases, how to get to journals, how to get to research guides. A lot of you probably were very familiar with the tab approach that we had on our old library's webpage, which had the tab for the discovery search, tab for databases, and so forth. If you click here on Libraries plus Archives Catalog, that is actually the eSU Discovery Search. It's just not labeled that anymore. So essentially, if you click on that link, that's going to be in a new tab, and now I can go ahead and use this to search for books that are owned by the library, ebooks, and so forth. So is that helping a little bit for you all?
Yes, thank you. It's helping. We're just basically stunned at how difficult it is.
I know.
To actually reach. And Cynthia, we know that's not your fault, but I've just spent a whole semester telling people it doesn't matter how good your collections are. If they can't find it, if they can't use it, it's no use at all. Yep. And then Emporia does this to us.
Right, right, yeah.
It's a little distressing.
Oh, it is. It is, yeah. And we have answered, I don't know how many questions. We've been documenting all of our questions that we've been getting from students and faculty both. Not that it would necessarily do any good, but at least it's additional documentation that we can have to say, this really has caused a lot of stress. You know, students are stressed anyway because they're working on assignments, working on research, and this really did not help. So like I said, what I've been really trying to do is in every single one of my sessions since this change, I've been really trying to focus on this is how we get to the library now, and then this is what we would need to do. So before we go on, are there questions that I could answer right now just about, I'm going to go back over here, just about how to navigate as far as the new web page is concerned? Because I definitely want to make sure people are comfortable with that.
No, you didn't just ask. Good light voice.
Hi, Cynthia. My name's Montana.
Yes.
Something I've always been curious about. Like when I'm in the catalog and it tells me I need to log in for full access, I understand that.
Right.
But over to the left where it says my library account, if I click on that, it takes me to a completely different website. And if I log into that, I've never understood what good that does me.
Okay, that's an excellent question. I can tell you first of all why why you're actually seeing two different platforms. The reason is that the library system, the ILS or the integrated library system that we're using for the catalog is actually from III, Innovative Interfaces Incorporated, and it's a web-based system called Sierra. You're not actually seeing Sierra on this screen. What you are seeing is actually an overlay from EBSCO that's called the EBSCO Host Discovery Search. So underneath, we have III Sierra going on. What you're seeing right now on this screen when I switched over, again, is the EBSCO Host Discovery Search platform. And the reason there's an overlay on that is that the Discovery Search enables you to search not only the library catalog, which is from III Sierra, but also a number of other databases. That's actually why when you search the Discovery Search, it's like you're discovering what is out there, not only in terms of books, but also journal articles and perhaps other resources. Now, when you click on My Library Account, and I'm going to go ahead and do that here, do you see up here, it's really hard to see, but do you see up here in the URL where it says III? Okay, that's actually now taking you directly into, I'm going to see if it actually saved my new password here. Okay, that actually took me into, I am actually now in the III system because the III system of Sierra is what will let me access my library account, which is totally separate from the EBSCO Host Discovery Search. I hope that that is not super confusing, but that's actually why some of these look the way that they do.
So Cynthia, let me clarify. When we're in the EBSCO search, we need to log in to show that we have the rights to access the EBSCO material, the materials that we're accessing with the EBSCO thing. But
that is exactly it.
But that's a separate authentication system than my account, which is taking us directly into the III, which is where you can see what you have checked out, what holds you have.
Yes.
And so forth. Okay.
Yes, that is exactly it. Yep, you've got it. And actually, when I'm thinking about it right now, since I am also off campus, I'm going to go ahead and log in.
And Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but I have to log in every time I want to get a new article. Am I doing something wrong? No.
Can you tell me where you are when you're doing that?
In Madison, South Dakota.
Okay, I probably should clarify that. When you say that you have to log in every time to get a new article, are you talking about being within the EBSCO Host Discovery Search, or are you talking about being within a particular database, like Library and Information Science Full Text?
You know, I don't keep it. It's not my system, so I don't keep my mind. I don't look.
That's okay. That's okay.
And I have figured out browsing is its own thing, and
yes.
That is also frustrating, but
yeah. Browsing is the way that we can actually provide access in a rather seamless interface to all of our online journals, plus the full text of online journals that are available in databases. So that's actually two different tiers as well. Yeah, and I think on that first question, yeah, and I am so sorry to have to ask you, but if that ever happens again, if you do have an opportunity to make a note of exactly where you are in the system, if you ever wanted to drop me like a quick email or a screenshot, I'd be more than happy to do some troubleshooting on that.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Okay, these are really good questions because they actually all have to do with collection development in the online age and access, which is a whole different thing than the way it used to be like 30 years ago or even 20 years ago.
Did you have a question, Jeremy?
Yeah.
I'm just going to second. I have to do the same thing.
Okay.
I'm constantly logging in when I'm
Okay.
on the website.
And there's
I
Okay.
do too, but
It turns
if I
me
just
off
hit
all the time.
refresh or like reload the screen, it logs in and you can keep going.
there's a
Okay, and again, can you tell me exactly where you are?
I would be just on this screen, scrolling.
On this
down,
screen?
up,
Okay,
down,
okay, okay.
articles.
So you're saying that on this screen, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do a search here. So let's say I was looking for information literacy and assessment. Okay, and now I am already logged in. Is that happening before you log in on the guest or after?
After I've already logged in.
Okay, let's see what happens here. Just for the heck of it. Since I'm also off campus, which is really great. Okay, so when you say that you would need to log in again, would that be if you were looking for an article?
Yeah, I could not be accurate to exactly when it happens. I just
Sure.
know if I'm on for an hour and I'm doing whatever I'm doing on your website,
Uh-huh,
I don't leave and go walk the dog or get the mail. I mean, I'm on there constantly.
Right,
I
right.
probably have to re-log in 4 or 5 times.
yeah. That I don't have an answer for, but again, I think if there's a way that we could kind of keep track of what was going on, that would help. I'm just going to go ahead and click. I'm just kind of curious to see if it's going to ask me to log in again. Okay, that actually worked. So that's a good thing. And of course it worked, right? Okay. Yeah, again, if you're running into any of those problems, and I know it's really hard to do that because sometimes you're just in the middle of something and you're frustrated and you just want to go ahead and get your work done. But if there's a way that you can sort of document that or take some screenshots, that would be absolutely wonderful, and we'd be more than happy to do some troubleshooting. Okay. Other questions before we kind of move on a little bit on how to navigate this new site, because I just want to make sure that you all are comfortable with that.
Maybe not a question so much as an inquiry.
Sure.
I noticed that you have, icons for basically everything except for the catalog,
Right.
and I just wondered why.
Okay. Well, the reason that we have this is that this was about the only way that we could make it prominent enough for people actually to click on it. We actually had a situation in which we had more of an icon when the transition first happened. We had an icon, and you would think that the icon would work as it would be going to the same portal or the same interface, and it actually wouldn't show up part of the time. What would happen would be that this would be a totally blank screen or like a broken link, and then all you would get down here was widget not loading or need the mobile version, and that got really frustrating. So we finally figured out a way of, I know this is a very large thing, but we finally figured out a way of making this link to the right thing with the EBSCOhost Discovery Search. So at least when you click on this, it will work. And more important, this will show up where other icons were not showing up for the catalog. And that took about 2 weeks. I know. We've been having fun, as you can imagine.
So Cynthia, would that imply that the new website was not tested before it went live?
That I do not know.
You're very diplomatic.
Or say, I really don't know. But yeah, it certainly has been an interesting time of doing a lot of troubleshooting and just trying to make sure that things are working and that people are comfortable with that. And by the way, as users and also as budding information professionals, I really, really appreciate all the comments. I've been also getting a lot of really helpful feedback and other emails from other SLIM students. So this is very helpful for me.
Well, I mean, that answer makes complete sense to me. I guess the only thing I would say is if you could somehow even put like a little magnifying glass with the text, because and I know it's terrible because I'm learning about this stuff, but when I see all that text, I just scroll right past it.
I understand.
went down, and it took me like 5 minutes to finally realize
Right.
I'm supposed to click on that. I thought
Right.
it was just a headache.
Title,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you talking about this text up here, library connection portal? It is a lot. You're right. No, that's actually really good feedback that I can take back. I appreciate that. Because it's kind of like, I just want to click, I just want to know where I want to click on and then go on my way.
It's almost, Cynthia, if the words click here could be in a different color, so that you were aware that it actually was a link and not
That's a
just,
good point.
yeah.
Oh, that's a really good point. I appreciate that. That's, yeah.
Since everything else is black, it might make sense to make it gold.
Yes. Or something that would be at least that would stand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Can I answer any other questions here? And if we don't, then I thought what I would do is kind of go back into the advanced search of the catalog of the discovery search. And I thought I might have some fun showing you all, actually with your textbook and with some other ebooks, on some considerations that we're doing now, since we're starting to get a lot more requests from SLIM faculty for ebooks for you all as SLIM students. So are you all kind of ready for me to move on to that?
Yes, I think so. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's go back over here. Okay, so as I was mentioning, I'm going to change my search to all text here. Something that Dr. Smith and I have talked about quite a bit, and I've talked about this with a lot of other SLIM faculty. So I have been the SLIM librarian liaison for quite a long time now. And again, what has happened with us, and this is perfect for you all as SLIM students, is that we've been having to realize in the library, again, that it might not make much sense to spend or invest a lot of money in terms of print resources for SLIM students when A, our students are not necessarily there to check out, and B, if you lend a print book, it can only go to one person at a time. Yes.
Breaking up just a little.
Oh, I am. Okay. 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 Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, you know what I think I did too? I think I leaned back in my chair a little bit too far. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate that. So basically we started to think about, okay, how are we going to get more electronic resources to our distance education students and actually do it in a way that would be cost effective, and then just also seeing what might be available, and then any considerations that we might have from different publishers or different vendors. So basically what that means is every vendor or every publisher of a certain ebook portal or an ebook platform has their own restrictions and their own regulations about what can be made available and what can't be made available. So how many of you use any ebook portals or platforms that might be available from your public libraries? Okay, good. I see some hands going up. And we do this here in Kansas as well. We have Cloud Library that's available from the State Library of Kansas. And that's very easy, just to check out a book and then read it on your tablet or Kindle or other device. Because of that, I think it's really hard sometimes for a lot of our patients to realize that ebooks for academic libraries are not necessarily going to work the same way. And I'm going to show you an example right here. Do collection development. Here we go.
Cynthia, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Absolutely, no.
You are going to have to log back in because you're a guest again, even though you never went out of the other
right
tab, and I think that's what we mean by the fact
that's exactly what I needed to see, as a matter of fact. I'm so happy that happened. That probably sounds really weird, but I'm really happy that happened, because that's something that I actually needed to see on my end, and that's exactly what you all are talking about, because look at that, I will have to log back in, you're right. And that is very weird. I will tell you that I think, there we go. I wonder if that kind of started happening since the migration as well.
No.
Oh, it was before that? Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for pointing that out, because that's something then that I can go back and report directly and say, I had this recorded, and I have evidence of it. There was a reason I was recording that. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted to show you all. So if I am correct, I believe this is the text that you all are using, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So we actually ordered this textbook as a collection of ebooks that we had available from ALA Editions, the American Library Association. And this is something that we wanted to make sure we had available to all SLIM students. So I'm going to click on PDF full text. And the reason I'm doing that is this will look very familiar to you, but I kind of wanted to show you some fine print that we have to be aware of as well. And this fine print is over here. Do you see over here under publisher permissions where it says print, email, save 100 pages, unlimited copy paste, unrestricted download, and then unlimited copies available? Okay, that's not from us. And sometimes I'll get questions from students who will say, well, why did you set it up so that we could only print or email or save 100 pages? That was actually not from us. This book is actually made available through a platform, yet again, EBSCOhost. So this is actually considered to be an ebook that's from EBSCOhost. And because the ebook is from EBSCOhost, the publisher is actually the one that sets the permissions for how they would want different ebooks to be available to their customers. So what I do as the liaison for SLIM is that if I get an email from Dr. Smith or Dr. Vardell or someone else to see if we can make something available as an ebook, the first thing I do is I check to see if it's available as an ebook through the EBSCOhost platform. Two reasons I do that. Our library actually has a contract with EBSCOhost, and because we have a contract on file, if the ebook is available through EBSCOhost, all we have to do is just send an order to EBSCOhost for the ebook, send the payment. Almost immediately, we get the record that we can put into the catalog and we can make it available immediately. So that helps to have a contract. But the other thing that I look for is, if it is available through EBSCOhost, what are the publisher permissions? And I think I may have had some of these with you, Dr. Smith. I know I have with Dr. Vardell and with Dr. Sutton. Sometimes I'll find an ebook that's available through EBSCOhost, but it is only available as a restricted availability. Rather than unlimited copies available, it may only say that 3 people at a time or 3 users at a time can actually use the book. And that has to do with concurrent access versus unlimited access. So concurrent access might mean that a limited number of people can actually access the ebook at one time. Well, here's the thing. We might have multiple sections of a specific SLIM course that are being taught in a given semester, and so I have no way of knowing how many students might want to access that book at different time zones, different times of the day or night. So we will basically only purchase an ebook if it is available through EBSCOhost and if we can get the unlimited copies available, and then hopefully the print and email and save 100 pages maximum. So I'm kind of curious, have you all been actually using this as an ebook, or have any of you actually bought your own copies of the book?
They're laughing because I think, you know, Dr. Sutton and I are doing a survey in every class, and Dr. Sutton will just have done the last class this morning.
Oh, good.
But I will actually share that with you, Cynthia.
I would love that.
In fact, I think about half the people in the room bought a print version or accessed a print version.
That's very interesting.
Yes, and now the proportions in each section are not the same.
Right.
But what is interesting, when we looked last night, because we looked last night, we did it last night, we looked at the results from here, and we looked at the results from the 3 classes, and only 20% actually said they preferred the ebook.
Okay.
So my question, of course, for us here, now there was a big chunk of people in the middle that said, I'm going to save $85 if I use the ebook. So that's a huge incentive to use the ebook, even although I don't actually like it nearly as well as a print edition.
Right, right, yeah.
So then we're getting into the, you know, there's an ethical consideration of, are we serving our students well by moving towards electronic resources, pushing them into a mode of learning that isn't their preferred mode? Or are we doing something that is ethically a little dubious by providing 20% of our students with access to their preferred mode, but the 80% of students we're not providing access to their preferred mode, which is not economically viable option for us the way we're going at the moment. So there are all these things going on, but yes, that's why they're laughing when you ask them how many people had used it, because
you've already answered these questions.
Again, how many of you used a print version of this book at some point for this course?
Okay, and I can see those hands as well.
Yeah, see, that's actually quite a lot.
That's very interesting, because I know one of the considerations that we've had as a library is the actual cost of textbooks. And we know that textbooks just continue to go up and up as far as price is concerned. We also have a discussion going on campus, and we actually have a task force right now, and Dr. Smith, you probably have seen some emails about this, to see if there is interest in other disciplines and other departments to move toward open educational resources, or OERs. And in that case, to see if there is interest of other faculty and other disciplines exploring the possibility of using freely available textbooks if they are of comparable quality in terms of academic merit, peer review, and so forth. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. It is a balancing act because, again, textbooks are just so expensive.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wanted to show you this because this is something that we do whenever we are actually looking for an e-book. And then again, the idea that we actually do have a contract on file with EBSCOhost, so we can actually offer this in a pretty seamless interface. It also integrates very, very nicely with the EBSCOhost discovery search that we're in right now.
Excuse me, Cynthia.
Yes, absolutely.
I think you said right at the beginning that this particular book came into the collection as part of an ebook collection. That ebook collection, all ALA materials. It was
a pack. Well, I said pack. I shouldn't even say that. This particular one was part of a grouping of ALA ebooks that we had surveyed the SLIM faculty about, and to see if they would want them in ebook form. Now, we actually are moving and exploring the idea of complete ebook collections a little bit more as well. And actually, I can go back over here and...
What do you mean by that?
That's what I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Library Connect, and I'm going to go into Databases. Now, the great thing is our interface to the databases did not change, because we actually control this. So that is wonderful. And let me see if this is still available here. Yes. Over here, can you see on the right-hand side of my screen that I'm going to click on eBook Academic Collection? There we are. This is a very large collection of ebooks. Again, do you see that EBSCOhost? That means that these are EBSCOhost ebooks. And if I went over here just to ebooks, I can actually browse by different categories. And you see they're even covering children's and young adult fiction and nonfiction, which is really interesting. But if I went down over here, I think I have to go into social sciences if I remember correctly. And let me go to subject. There we go, and publisher and category. Okay. I can actually search by different categories, or if I had a particular title in mind and I was curious to see if we had a title, or if I went into an advanced search, which will look familiar to you all because we teach the advanced search for all of our different databases. If I got rid of this, and I'm going to limit my subject, let's see, let's limit this to subject. You can see that we have quite a few here that actually do relate to library science and library and information management. And if I click on the PDF full text for these, and hopefully I'm still signed in, it looks like I'm good so far. Notice that we have the same publisher permissions over here: print, email, and save 100 pages, unlimited copies available. That is what we did with this larger ebook collection for an academic collection. We made sure that every single one of these ebooks had the unlimited copies available, and then the print, email, and save 100 pages. So kind of curious to see how this one goes.
Cynthia, it just occurred to me, how long is our contract with EBSCOhost on that particular collection of ebooks? Is it a year at a time?
Yes, yes. It would wind up being like other databases that we subscribe to, like Library and Information Science Source. It would be a year's contract. We are keeping our usage statistics, and then we would look at that and then compare them against talking with other people and making sure that people know about that to see whether we would go ahead and renew that or not. That's actually a really good segue into usage statistics, by the way.
But just before you segue into usage statistics,
yes,
do you have any idea how long EBSCOhost's contract with ALA is? Because one of the students last night said, or I think it was Jeremy, asked, what guarantee do we have that those books will actually continue to be available?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. EBSCOhost, as far as I know, doesn't have a contract with ALA Editions per se. It depends upon the book. And what will happen is that not every single book that's published by ALA Editions is available as an ebook.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's actually done title by title.
That is what I've actually seen, and I suspect that probably has to do with an author's preference as well. If an author would also want their publications to be available electronically, that's sort of my supposition right now, but I think that's probably why it's still on a title by title basis.
But we have no clue as to what length of time those individual book agreements are. So
not necessarily. It's actually very similar to what happens with electronic databases such as Library and Information Science Source, which provides a lot of full text for a lot of library journals, but again, those contracts are with the publishers. And I can tell you that I have seen situations in which the full text of a journal might be available in a database for quite a few years, but then if the publisher decides to pull their rights, then the indexing is still there for the citations to the articles, but the full text may indeed be gone. And that is just something that it is a reality in this world of electronic collection development.
okay, thank you.
And it's really something to be aware of. Yeah, yeah. Preservation versus, I started to say preservation versus access. It's actually preservation and access. And I'm going to switch back over here. Okay. Other questions before I kind of move on to usage statistics, because I also wanted to introduce you all a little bit to how we in a library can at least make some recommendations in terms of online collection development of what to keep and what we might want to be, what we might say it may not be that useful to the curriculum anymore. So I'm going to switch my sharing here. And I'm going going to go into something else I just pulled up for you all. Okay. There we are. Are you all now seeing an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I decided to pull this up for you this morning. I just ran it before we started our session. Something that is part of my job, I do a lot of instruction like this, but I also am involved in assessment. And part of my job with assessment has to do with gathering usage statistics for databases and then also for our direct subscriptions to online periodicals. And we actually do have a lot of direct online subscriptions to library and information science journals, again, because we're serving you all, we're serving people in Emporia as distance education students, and so we want to make sure that that is available as much online as we possibly can. So this is an example of something that I actually might spend some time analyzing. And I'm going to pull this over so you can see this a little bit better. Do any of you, or have any of you, dealt with downloading and analyzing usage statistics from databases or other sources by any chance? Okay. I wanted to make you aware of this because data management is just a huge thing now in, I think, any type of library. And data can really help in terms of making effective decisions. It's not the only thing out there, quantitative and qualitative analysis. But this particular report that I downloaded, I'm going to scroll down here. And I know it's a lot of information. But what I wanted to show you is these are actually databases that we have available, again, through EBSCOhost. So you're going to keep hearing EBSCOhost quite a bit. And a lot of the time, I will say to our undergraduate students, EBSCOhost is not a database. EBSCOhost is a vendor or a publisher, and there are a number of databases that are available through EBSCOhost. So something that we might consider, I apologize, I don't mean to make you all dizzy there. Here we go. This is where I wanted to get to. Okay, I'm going to pull this over so you can see this a little bit better. So this is a report that I ran of usage statistics in terms of record views, searches, and so forth of all of the EBSCOhost databases that we subscribe to from the fiscal year of 2019. So I did July of 2018 through June of 2019. And the reason I did this was I wanted to show you that there's one of your major databases that you all use, Library and Information Science Source. This is being used quite a bit. It looks like, and this is by month, by the way, that we had over 14,000 regular searches, which means those would just be searches that were initiated directly in the database. But notice here, these actually say, I'm going to wrap this text so you can see that a little bit better. Search is federated and automated. Notice how much bigger that number is? That actually reflects the number of times that Library and Information Science Source was accessed through the EBSCOhost. Basically, when you're searching in that discovery search in the catalog and you're getting both books and articles, you're actually pulling references to articles from Library and Information Science Source as well as a lot of other databases. And record views, that would simply mean, that wouldn't actually mean looking at the full text of an article. It would mean the number of times that an actual record for an article was viewed through the database. A total of over 13,000 times. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that I could actually show those statistics to my dean, and I could say, we need to keep Library and Information Science Source. We would keep it anyway because it's such a fantastic source of information for you all as SLIM students. But in order to help justify that, it helps me tremendously to be able to look at these types of statistics and say, this database is really being used. Then I can go back to students, back to faculty, and I can say, can you tell me a little bit more about how you're utilizing this database or how you're requiring students to use it? But I just wanted to show you that that is a really good example of how we actually do use data to help inform our decisions accordingly. this is happening more and more in terms of online collection development. So I'd be curious to see if anybody has any questions about that.
Here's a question.
Yes.
This report, EBSCO helps you make this report?
That's a very good question. Actually, what I did was we have administrative passwords that we use to go into the back end of EBSCOhost, ProQuest, which is another one of our vendors, and other vendors as well. And what I do is I use my administrative login, and then this will actually then let me go ahead and generate these statistics at any point.
Questions, Jeremy and Ruth?
Yes.
Do you have an ERN that you use to manage your statistics, or do you just use Excel?
Oh my goodness, I wish we had an ERM, an electronic resources management system. That would be my dream. Right now, we actually are not able to do that or able to afford what's out there. If I'm going to be doing anything like this, I do have to go to the different vendors, and I also will wind up going to the different publishers directly of electronic journals that we subscribe to. So a good example of that is we have a number of library and information science journals that are published by Taylor and Francis, and we have an e-journals package for that. I do go to the Taylor and Francis platform with my administrative login, and I pull the statistics from those. It doesn't sound, I should say, it's not quite as onerous as it sounds. It's just kind of a routine that I get into, and then I just keep everything accordingly. And then what I do is, if I'm doing electronic journals, I take actually the subscription cost for an electronic periodical or for an e-journals package, and I do calculations with the full text retrievals that I find from those journals to get a CPU or a cost per use or a cost per full text retrieval. And I'm always happy to say that you all are really seeing the journals, because a very quick average of the full text cost per article retrieval for our library and information science journals, it's about 50 cents per use. And that is low. That's fantastic. So keep doing it.
Jeremy, you had a question?
Yes.
Is there any instances where this data has been wrong?
You know, I've not found it. I will tell you what I do find, though. I would say data is not wrong. Sometimes I find anomalies. And when I say that, I remember one time in which I was downloading usage statistics for another database. And, like for 3 months, there was no usage whatsoever. And I thought, well, you know, maybe something did happen. Maybe it didn't download correctly. So I did some investigations. Well, what had happened with that was within that 3 months, we had a change in our IP address for access to that database. And so for that 3-month period, that database had actually not been able to be accessed quite as regularly as it did after we got the IP address fixed, which is an excellent, I'm glad you asked that question, because when you're analyzing data, you really need to be aware of any exceptions or any anomalies that might be out there. Another example might be that the use of a particular database might drop for a semester. And you think, well, again, maybe the data happens to be wrong. But it also might be a situation in which a professor who was requiring the use of that database was on sabbatical for a semester. And the person who was filling in maybe didn't know to require that database or to require use of that electronic journal. And so that was why the usage dropped. So if you ever see an exception like that, you really start what else is out there that might have affected that usage.
Do you ever use interlibrary loan statistics to determine what to purchase for your?
We do. We could probably use them a lot more, but we do use those at least to help flag if a specific journal is being requested. We actually did that with Slim not too long ago. There was a journal, I think it's the Journal of Electronic Resources Librarianship. And we're getting interlibrary loan requests for that because we didn't have electronic access to it. And we said, you know, that's a useful one. We really need that. So then we decided to purchase an e-journals package from Taylor and Francis, and it was specifically for library and information science. It included the Journal of Electronic Resources librarianship, but it actually increased the access to other journals probably by about 15 to 20%. We added several more titles as a result, but part of that was triggered by interlibrary loan. These are great questions.
Have you ever got rid of something because of your usage statistics? Electronic.
Yes. More in terms of databases than anything else. Not very often, and we don't do it right away. But we have had, well, I can think of one situation, and this has probably been about 5 or 6 years ago. We had a database for another department, and it had been requested by a faculty member. And the faculty member was going to integrate it into their curriculum, and so everything worked out really well. Well, there were two things going on. Number one, the database just simply wasn't getting used. The usage statistics were not there. Number two, the database actually was more of an index, and there's nothing wrong with the database being an index to journal articles. That's what we had back in the day, but it didn't offer full text. Well, we kept promoting it, but it just simply was not used. And then finally, we went back to the department and to the specific faculty member, but we were able to take our statistics and we were able to say, have you been integrating this? Because this is just simply not being used. And the department and the faculty member's response was, well, we thought it might be good, but you can probably go ahead and let go of it. So we did as a result. But we don't, like I said, we don't do that in a vacuum, and we really don't do that in a hurry. We gather our evidence, and then, like, for example, if there was a library and information science database that I saw wasn't being used, I would not recommend right away that it would be canceled. I would go back to the SLIM faculty, and I would say, this is what's going on. Can you tell me a little bit more? Maybe it's something that's not being used anymore. Maybe it's not, necessarily relevant to the curriculum. But yes, we have indeed done that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Other questions that are out there, or Dr. Smith, anything else that I've not covered as yet?
Talk to us about the journals crisis.
I can do that. Well, there are very interesting things going on right now with e-journals. And I will tell you that part of what is going on is that we're almost caught in a situation in which kind of goes back to one of the questions earlier. How and what guarantees do we have that these resources will continue to be offered? Well, if you are familiar with Elsevier, the publisher Elsevier, if you ever want to do anything really interesting, go on Google and Google Elsevier and the University of California, because that's one of the most prominent cases that's out there of a publisher that just kept raising their journal subscriptions like you wouldn't believe. They were just absolutely horrendously expensive. And even a large system like the University of California system got to the point where they just simply could not afford it. Elsevier was also very, very reluctant to provide open, free access to journal articles that were published by professors from the University of California that were actually funded through federal grants. And part of that can be you need to make that information publicly available because something has been funded through a federal grant. And it was just a huge negotiation. Essentially, that can lead to, again, the concept of open access journals. But another situation that happens with that is that open access journals that are hopefully freely available, faculty can publish in them, anybody can get access to them. Are those journals considered to be peer-reviewed and of sufficient academic rigor that in an academic institution, do those journals count for tenure and promotion? And that is a huge, huge situation. And Dr. Smith, if I remember correctly, I think the SLIM faculty have had discussions about that.
Yes, we are working on that very thing at the moment, but we are encountering resistance.
I am not surprised. It's just a real struggle right now. I don't know. Oh, and what can happen is that if a library then says, we just simply cannot afford these subscriptions anymore to these online journal packages or databases, then we are winding up pulling that immediate access from our students and our faculty. And so it's a very, very frustrating situation. And I'm not sure that it has any end, if there's any end in sight.
Except when you run out of money.
When you run out of money, or your budget gets cut, or your budget stays flat, but the subscriptions keep going up just like the cost of living.
Right.
Yeah.
Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't deal with online stuff almost at all, so I don't know if this has been covered, but you mentioned yesterday about their non-disclosure agreements.
Oh, yeah, talk about you can't tell us how much something costs.
That is true. That is very true. And that kind of goes along with sometimes if I get a question from SLIM students that will say, well, what does a specific database cost, or even a specific e-journal, but more in terms of databases? And yes, the answer is it's kind of like buying a car or a house. It's all negotiated between the library and the publisher. Yes, we do have non-disclosure agreements that would say that we would not reveal what we paid for a certain journal or a certain database package. We wouldn't actually share that with other publishers or any vendors or anything like that. What can happen, and some of you might be familiar with this, it used to be that a lot of libraries were able to do more consortial agreements or be in consortiums with different publishers, so that a consortium of academic libraries or public libraries could pay a reduced price per year for a database as a consortium. I am finding, though, that that's starting to go by the wayside a little bit more. We used to be involved in a consortium here in Kansas, we meeting Emporia State. But we found just in the last few years that our publishers were not necessarily willing to negotiate with us. But a lot of costs can depend upon your full-time enrollment number, or FTE, so we can provide that to a publisher or to a vendor. But a lot of it, too, is just a lot of negotiations back and forth. So there's no set price.
So libraries, like you said, consortium could, like the University of California, can't they get together and even maybe with California State University say, we're not buying anything from this certain publisher because we don't want to sign a non-disclosure agreement? There's just not enough weight.
Right. No, it's not enough weight and it depends upon different publishers. Elsevier is a very, very big one in terms of the sciences, the social sciences, and that also does overlap into library and information science. A lot of it depends upon how prominent a journal is. So if a journal publisher is very prominent in the field, they're going to carry a lot more weight politically and academically and otherwise to be able to say, this is the price that you as a university are going to have to pay, because this is basically the way that it is, and your professors are actually having to publish in these journals in terms of them being weighted a little bit more heavily. Yeah, it's always been that way to a certain degree, but I think with online, the way that it is, it's even more so. I'm actually going to put in a little bit of a plug here too, just for the fun of it. I think it'll be in early or mid 2020. I actually wrote an article on analyzing journals and then applying best practices of assessment, and it will be published in the Serials Librarian. So a lot of what I've been talking about will be in that article as well. So I'll get that information out. I also, speaking of agreements and so forth, I did sign an agreement with the Serials Librarian so I can make that available as a preprint. So that's kind of nice.
Tell us about that.
Well, I had an agreement that I had to sign with the Serials Librarian, which is published by Taylor and Francis, And on that agreement, I basically indicated whether or not I would be okay with sharing it as a preprint.
And what exactly do you mean by a
preprint? Okay, very good. A preprint simply means that that is going to be a copy of an article that is not the final version, that's actually published either in print or electronically. That means that there might be a few formatting errors or maybe a few other errors in it, but it essentially is the article, which actually could be filed in an institutional repository, for example, or made available in other ways. The kick on that, or the catch on that, is if I were writing a paper and if I were using a preprint of an article, I would need to make it very clear in my paper and in my citation for the paper that it is a preprint. It's not the actual final version of the article.
And who is, sorry, I'll get there in a second. Who's actually checking that they are different?
That's a very good question. I would hope that the reader or the user of the article would be checking and would be aware that it is a preprint.
Right, but I'm just wondering how many people are actually
Probably not.
Preprints that are in fact in any way different.
Exactly.
From the thing.
Yeah.
And then the one other question I had that I've now totally forgotten. So Mariah, why don't you ask your question, because I
yes.
for mine.
Well, it's just a general question. Do preprints have their own ISBNs? Like, or is it the same?
Oh, that's a great question. Did you catch that? Do preprints have their own ISBN or ISSN?
It would be an ISSN. You know, that I'm actually not sure about since it's the actual article, but it's a preprint of the article because the ISSN would actually go to the journal.
Right, but if it was a DOI.
Yeah.
That
I don't know. That's a good question.
Sounds like a white paper.
Yeah, but we've actually no clue is the answer to that. So I know what I was going to ask you.
Oh, yes.
Is there a limitation on, so the journal article, the journal with your article will not be published until the middle of 2020.
That's what I'm expecting.
Restriction on how soon you can publish the preprint?
That I have not, I actually haven't had any information on that yet from the serials librarian because it's still in process. But that's a good question because that's something I will have to find out.
Right, because I'm just thinking because some people, they have an article accepted for a journal and it's not going to be printed for 18 months.
Yes, exactly, because it takes so long, even electronically.
Yeah, yeah. But if there is a preprint agreement, is there an embargo on the preprint agreement?
I suspect that I know that there would have to be as far as different journals are concerned. I've not seen one yet for this one, but I suspect that will be coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just finished, let's see, actually yesterday I just finished reviewing the final, not really the final version, but I just, I basically got the draft back and I just finished reviewing it and then I sent that back just to see if there were any formatting errors.
Okay. Are there other questions for Cynthia? I think you're just stunned, Cynthia. I think the main difficulty is because we have a discovery search page, the implication is you're on the search page, it takes you into the stuff we own or the stuff.
That is so true.
And that is one thing, the stuff we license or own.
Yes.
And in fact, the stuff we license or own, each part of that can be a different agreement with a different time frame, with a different vendor coming from different places. And so although it's designed to look seamless, in fact, it's an unbelievably complex array or spider web of things going on behind that discovery search.
Yes.
And we've almost, classic library thing, we've made it look so easy that it's very hard for people to understand when something doesn't work or when you have to log in again or when something's not there this week, it's there last week.
Yes.
Because it's not one thing, it's a huge complexity.
Yes.
You know, Cynthia, you made it all sound so charmingly easy.
Oh, no.
But the whole idea is almost every single element in the electronic collection.
Yeah, it is.
Has
It is.
a regularly recurring, i.e. at least every 12 months,
Yes.
renegotiation.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly it. Yeah. And I think you just summed it up very, very well, Dr. Smith. We've made it seemingly easy to get information. However, there is just so much complexity behind it on why one article from a journal is available, but the next article is not. Why we do have to keep logging in. Again, I'm really happy that that happened on my end, because now I have that recorded. Why that journal or that book that was there one day in electronic form is gone the next day because we lost the license for it or the publisher pulled access. Imagine explaining this to, quote unquote, your average library patron. And that's what I think can be a huge, huge challenge. You know, we're information professionals and it's confusing for us.
Yeah. Okay, everyone's either stunned or appalled.
I hope not that.
Maybe both. Ryan, you had a question.
That time we talk about the average person, and I assume everyone knows because you had to give us the exact web address. It's really impossible to find the William Allen White Library now from Google. It's like 5 million, not 5 million, but the first 3 hits don't take you there now.
And I'll tell you that, did you catch that, Cynthia? It's impossible to find William Allen White Library on Google.
Yes, there's a reason for that too. Yeah, that's true. Because a lot of people do Google that. That's because the problem is with Google has not had a chance to catch up yet to all of these different changes, and so it's still trying to go to the old library's web page, and then it comes up as error 404.
And the response we got from IT and marketing was, oh, well, Google will catch up in time. And you're thinking, yeah,
Right.
it probably will, but in the meantime, that's not a reasonable provision of service.
No, it's not.
I think for most of us on campus, the idea that you would purposefully break every link and not provide a redirect to the new page was just incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Because at least we understand the concept of wanting to get rid of all the old pages. I fully understand that, because there were pages on the website that it didn't seem to matter what they did, they couldn't ever make them go away.
Right.
But not providing any bridging links from the old pages to the new seemed like, I understand why, it would have taken them some time to do it. But at the same time, you're saying that the amount of inconvenience you overnight managed to provide to every single student / paying customer,
Yes.
Was astonishing.
Yes. And to complicate it even more, the day that this happened, it was like about 10 or 10:30 in the morning. It actually happened right between some library instruction sessions that we were doing all day in person for our Composition 1 and Composition 2 students. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, because between one class and the next, your links didn't work.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
And search didn't work, so you couldn't search to your links.
That's exactly it. Yeah, we finally figured it out, and then we were finally able. And that's why I brought just to kind of wind up. I did want to just go back again. Just remember www.emporia.edu/library. Bookmark that, favorite it, save that any way that you can, because that's going to be your fastest way of at least getting back to where you need to be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any final questions before we let Cynthia get back to her Saturday?
I just find it on Google. It's the 5th result.
Oh, we're now the 5th result in Google.
Oh, that's nice.
If you search William Allen White Library, it's the 5th.
Oh, if you search William Allen White Library, 5th result. So we're getting there. Well, that's good.
We're getting there, right? Yeah.
So, But thank you, Cynthia, for sharing this with us.
Of course. Oh, and thank you all so much for your really thoughtful questions and feedback. I cannot tell you how much that I really do appreciate that. Please, again, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm ckane1@emporia.edu. Contact me with any questions. I'd be more than happy to help you.
And I will say Cynthia's fabulous. So even when you've graduated, particularly if you're moving into the academic library environment and you need some professional assistance, there is the wonderful librarian who will be happy to give you assistance.
Absolutely.
Because we as librarians do not discriminate against whether you're no longer paying student fees or not. We are a profession that tends to help each other no matter who you are. So don't assume that, you know, the day of your graduation, that's it, everybody in SLIM is now cut off from you. That is
Right.
not the case at all, and particularly so with our librarians. So thank you again, Cynthia, and you'll send me a link to the recording when it's ready
I will do that.
and available. That'll be
That
great.
sounds great. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Bye-bye.
Okay. It is time to take a break. Because I can see people beginning to wilt after the sumptuous lunch. Yeah. So there is still quite a lot of the sumptuous